Hello, how are you guys doing? Welcome to the Silver Rooms. Going to be the Supreme Model book talk with Marcellas, and we're going to have Dion as well joining us. How are you guys doing?
I'm great. I have no complaints about anything. I can't be more excited.
Good. And Dion, how are you doing?
Hey, how are you? What's up? How you doing, Brandon? Hey, Marcellas.
Honey, hi. Look how pretty you look.
Thank you. I had to get dialed up for you today.
You know what? I always appreciate the effort, baby. Yes, I do. I see one of my dearest friends is in the room. Her name is Asia. Hey, Asia.
We got some great people in the room.
That makes me happy.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started now. Dion, and introduce yourself and everything. Well, I'm going to get started. My name is Brandon. I work at the Silver Room. I'm one of the assistant store managers. I also do photography and graphic design on the side. I love my job. I love the people I work with. I love the customers that come into the store. It's really a culture. It's an environment. It's a community. It's fun. It doesn't feel like work. So that's one thing that is a key. And that's what I love about my job. So we go ahead and get started. The Supreme Models book. That's so fabulous.
Hi, Corinne. Hi, Aiden.
It's laugh.
All right, I'm not going to be annoying and keep shouting out my friends all day. I'm just going to be like a normal person and have like a normal chat. So thank you, Brandon, for the introduction with your cute self. Dion knows how silly I am because Dion and I are actually sort of friendly. She came to one of my there's one from Tiffany. She came to one of my book events and got her book signed. Dion, hold up your book.
I got my book, okay? I got my book.
She came to one of my book events and signed the book, and she looks beautiful at that book event too. It was such a beautiful night.
Yes.
It gave me a party. Remember that, Dion?
That's right. Billy Deck, and we were at the Underground a couple years ago for your new book. Was that last year?
Last year, girl. This book has not been out a couple of years. It's been out 1 year.
I also want to say hi to Eric, owner of the Silver Room. Thank you so much. I see his icon of it.
Hey, how you doing?
Eric is one of my favorite people.
Eric, I know you're the boss, but mute your microphone. This is me and Dion's time. Wait, what's that thing from Fame? This was my audition, Leroy.
This is why I know this is gonna be a great talk today. And Brandon, are you done? Have you thrown it over to us? Or are you gonna do your intros?
Brandon is done. He's already muted. Ask the first question, Dion. Let's go. Come on.
Okay. So we had a good talk yesterday, but everybody, I just love your story. I love the book. Okay, I got my book the first night I met you. It's a beautiful book, but I want to know your story. Like, I want to start from the beginning, because when I do my talks with fashion icons, you're a fashion icon and legend to me. I want to go all the way back. So you were raised in Chicago.
Born and raised in Chicago. I'm from the South Side. You know, I always say, once upon a time, there was a little black boy from the South Side of Chicago. And he wanted to get the hell off the South Side desperately. So I guess my story really starts. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I lived in South Shore. I went to high school in Kenwood Academy in Hyde Park. Okay. So I know Hyde Park very well. That's why when the Silver Room reached out to me, I was like over the moon to do this talk, because it's such an iconic institution. So I guess my story really starts at 15. I lied about my age and got my first job. It was in a retail clothing store in Water Tower. And really quickly, I moved from like stock boy to an actual, Audrey Petty is in the room. I moved from a stock boy to a salesperson. And here's the crazy thing. when you don't know anything about money and you start making money, I don't know if y'all know this, what y'all parents was like this. When my mother was a single mother, I was making like $1,200 a week in commission, and my mother was taking my checks and still giving me an allowance.
Oh.
I will never forget that, because it wasn't until I got like to college that I realized that I was making a whole lot of money, and Clarice was like pocketing all the profits. So I'm getting like $100 a week, but I'm turning over a check that's like $1,200, $1,000, sometimes $2,500, because we were making a ton of money at this retail store in Water Tower. And I had crazy clients, like Melody Hobson was one of my clients back in the day. And she would come in and drop a ton of money, and she was still in high school. Oprah was one of my clients, which is so crazy because I've got a crazy Oprah story. So anyway, from there, it was like retail just became like my life. And I would cut class if there was a sale, because that meant that there was like gonna be like real money in the store. So I would be like, I'm not going to school. I'm going to make this money. And my mother would sign my like slip. She would be like, how much money did you make? And I would be like, I know. And she would be like, okay, just go. Yeah. So, but I worked in retail for a really long time. And from retail, I worked at a horrible place called Boogie's Diner, which was on the corner of Rush and Rush and something. Yeah. So anyway, at Boogie's Diner, I met like all these, like, again, I had this great clientele, and I met all these like kind of influential Chicago people, and I met Jerry Kleiner and Dan Krasny. And they were like, you're cute, you should come work at Vivo, which was this hot restaurant in the 90s. So I ended up working at Vivo. Then when Marche opened across the street, I ended up working at Marche. And that was where my life really started, because I got discovered to be a model by Marie Anderson, who owned Aria. And from there, it was just like, boom, doors open, I'm out, let's go. Like every good thing that could possibly have happened from that moment. But
so that's when you became a model. When she discovered you, what happened? Like when she said, how did she approach you? What happened?
Girl, okay, my ex-boss Corinne is in this room. So Corinne, step out of the room because I don't want you to know the story. So anyway, when you worked at Marche, you had to work lunches, and I was a diva. And I was like, I don't do lunches. I can't be up before 3 p.m. I've got like stuff to do. But you had to work at least one lunch a week to get your night job, to get your night shifts. And the night shifts, we were making like $300, $400, $500 sometimes. So I was doing my penance lunch at Marche. And so that means I was like sulking, and I was like walking around, and I didn't want to do any side work. And I was like, ugh. So I walk up to my first table, and it's 3 women. And so I walk up to the table, and I used to strut around the room like it was a runway. I used to like give you theater and arms, and I walked up to the table, and I was like, hi, what are we celebrating? Let's start with a glass of champagne.
Yeah.
And so the 3 women looked up at me, and they were like, you're really cute, you should be a model. And I was not feeling it that day. So I was like, whatever, you should have the salmon. I thought they were flirting with me. And then the other woman was like, no, if she tells you you should really be a model, you should be a model. And I was like, listen, ladies, these are the specials. And they were like, listen, my name is Marie Anderson. This is Mary Bosher. We own Aria Model and Talent. And the other woman that was sitting there owned an agency in St. Louis called like Centro. And literally all 3 of them gave me their cards, and they were like, are you gonna call us? And I was like, maybe. And literally that's how it started. I called Mary Bonsher. She brought me in. I walked over from the restaurant one day and went over and saw them at Aria because it was walking distance. And they were like, you should be a model. And like within like a month, I had like tested with a bunch of photographers, with like Michael Voltatorni, who's a Chicago legend, and Stephen Scott Gross and Jeff Stella. And a month to the day my card came out, I got my first model booking, and it was for Family Dollar with Jason Penny, who was a photographer in Chicago. And I remember I cried because I was really upset, because when I got to set, they had me being a father, and they had like a kid, and I was like, I am not old enough to have a child. It was like all like crazy.
So how were those runway days? So how were those modeling days? So did you stay in Chicago? Did you move? You had to learn really quickly. So how was the modeling days and you during that time?
In seriousness, modeling was like a crash course in sophistication, right? So right away I started working, and then it was like I would be at the restaurants, and then I would like, the restaurants were perfect though, because you could get somebody to cover your shift. So it was the perfect way to like have a real job and then expand upon like what your new dream is. And so I started working right away. I went to New York right away. And then I would come back. I went to Miami my first season, and that was wonderful. And then I ended up going to Europe, and I spent a year out of the United States. And that was like really a learning curve, because I had never really been out of the country. I'd been to Mexico a few times, but I had never been to like, I spent like 3 months in London. Then I spent a month in Paris. Then I went back to London. Then a friend of mine, Amy Seibel, came to visit me in London. London was really lonely. And it was where I learned to sort of be by myself. You know what I mean? And like learn to like actually kind of be like an introvert and walk around and like go to museums. To this day, I really love museums because of the time I spent in London. And then I did Milan, and Milan was like, I mean, that's like model boot camp. There were 8 of us in one room sharing one bathroom. And I was like I was like the only gay guy in the room with like all 7 of the hottest guys in the world. And then we're walking around. None of us speak Italian. 2 of us only speak Spanish. I don't speak Spanish. Nobody else spoke Spanish. And so we learned how to like point, and we learned how to like yell really loudly at people that didn't speak English, which is very American. Like you yell louder in English thinking that's gonna make them understand. But somehow we got through it. And that was where I think I got this amazing amount of respect for fashion and for models and for photographers and for like the craft of fashion design, because I was a fit model for Brioni while I was in Milan. And so I would be standing there for hours while they worked on a lapel, or while they got like the vents right for a jacket. And so you're standing there and you're talking to the tailors, and you understand the history of a brand, and you understand all the things that go into the brand. And so that really taught me like so much. And let me tell you, I came home with so much Prada. Oh, and, you know, you come home from Prada, you come from Europe, home from Europe the first time, you have to cut all your tags out of everything because you don't want to have to pay the taxes when you get out the way. So I came home with like so much like Prada and so much Brioni. And I think that Brioni, working for Brioni as a fit model, was where I decided where my love of blazers started. Wow, I just figured that out right now. Like that was where my love of like suits and blazers started.
So I saw you were talking about when you first started out, you had hair, and a photographer asked for you to cut this hair. Now, what's the story?
So I was working, and I was like, my first 2 years in Chicago, I made a lot of money, because even though my old ass was like 25, I was doing juniors, like Black Don't Crack. So I was like always like jumping. You guys see, I talk too much and I'm smiling and so I was always jumping around on set. So very quickly, photographers were like, oh, you know, if you want somebody that's gonna run, that's gonna jump, that's gonna like move, call Marcellas. So, and I was doing like Montgomery Ward, and I was doing Kohl's, and I was doing Meyer in Michigan, and I was flying to Minneapolis and doing Target, and then I was doing J.C. Penney in Dallas. It was like kind of crazy. And very quickly, I became like one of the biggest juniors in the country, but I was old as hell, but I was working kind of all over the place. And then Marie was doing a book about modeling, because she had done one book that had been a bestseller that Cindy Crawford was on the cover, because she discovered Cindy Crawford. So she wanted to do volume 2, and she asked me to do it. And Norman Jean Roy, who is a huge photographer now, who was just kind of starting out back then, had come to Chicago to shoot the book, and Norman saw my card and was like, he looks like Tyson, will he shave his head? And my booker, David, was like, absolutely not, he makes too much money, there's no way he can shave his head. But I was the catalog boy that wanted to be an editorial boy, so I was like, fuck that, I'm shaving my head. Like, if Norman Jean Roy wants you to shave your head, you shave your head.
Yeah.
I shaved my head at some salon, like Mario Tricocci or some, you know, one of those, you know, Chicago salons.
Yeah.
And I had never shaved my head before. And so I sat in the chair and I cried like I was gonna say I cried like a girl getting her first haircut, but I cried like a baby because I didn't know what my head looked like under my hair.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and I'm crying, and Marie is like holding my hand. And I'm like, I can't believe I've done this. This is awful. It is so bad. And because I've got like a little bit of a divot in the back that I never knew existed. I think my mother dropped me when I was a baby. And
could have been.
but it turned out to be amazing because Norman shot the photos, and then the photos took me like to the next level. And that's how I got my New York agency, and that's how I got out of the country, and that's how I started like sort of working as an editorial boy. But I would always come back to Chicago and get a job at one of the restaurants that Corinne managed or Michael Nahabedian managed, and I was also always the model that always had a second job because I really liked money and I liked living well.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to have a roommate, like none of that nonsense. I wanted to be able to go into like Blake and drop a couple of $1,000s, you know what I mean? I wanted my Dries Van Noten. I wanted my like, you know, right off the rack, you know, brand new Calvin Klein. So I wanted my Gucci this, Fendi that. I was that queen. So,
so as the time went on, you modeled all those years, and then as you start getting older, or maybe you evolved into wardrobe styling. How did that happen? How did you?
This is the best story. Okay, well, I don't know if it's the best story, but this is how I became a stylist. So I was in New York, my last kind of real season as a model, and my friend Kathy had already stopped. Kathy Michaels, her real name is John Lynch, but her model name was Kathy Michaels. Kathy has stopped modeling, and now she worked for Christy Turlington. So basically, I'm in New York, and I'm not doing anything. I'm going on the occasional casting, but I was in love with this French guy, right? So all I wanted to do was spend my time with Elaine. Elaine Mercier. And all my time I wanted to do was spend my time with Alan. I called him Alan, but he's pronounced it Elaine. So anyway,
Okay.
I was doing absolutely nothing, girl, but spending money I didn't have, kind of going to castings. Oh, and back then the models were making their own speed. So me and all these models were literally making speed. So I was skinny as hell. And all the time I was like running like crazy because it wasn't really speed, but what it was you took, Primatine Mist pills, because they have ephedrine in them. You take high doses of aspirin and high doses of caffeine pills, and you take them all at once, and like it speeds up your metabolism. So I was crazy skinny, and I was like in love, and I was going on the occasional castings, but Kathy was like, you're really kind of a deadbeat. You need to come work with me. So Kathy gave me a job working with her and Christy Turlington. My job literally working for Christy Turlington was to go to lunch every day with Christy Turlington, which was amazing because we would be walking down the street and people would be like, oh my God, it's Christy Turlington. And I would be like, get away from her. Don't talk to her. And then Christy would pay for lunch and it was just the best. But then I would have to like stuff envelopes because she had a beauty company. She had a skincare company and I would have to stuff envelopes and send out samples. So I would have to like do that and take that to the post office. But basically that was New York. So while I was in New York, one of my friends who I had met in London was there and she worked for British Vogue. She had been a model, but now she was like a junior assistant editor at British Vogue, right? Yeah. So she was in town and she was like, I need a stylist to shoot this cover in 6 pages for British Vogue. And she was like, can you do it? And I was like, well, I guess I can. And she was like, well, basically I already pulled all the clothes because it's the collections and the designers sent the head to toe looks. So there was nothing I had to do but put the clothes on the model. And the model was sample size and the clothes were sample size. So literally I end up styling this gig with Catherine Hurley was her name, not the actress with the boobs. Catherine Hurley was her name, and the guy's name was Norbert, and he had the Calvin Klein Eternity campaign at the time with Christy Turlington.
Okay.
So then I come back to Chicago, and I've got literally a cover from British Vogue and like 8 pages inside British Vogue, and I show it to my stylist, I show it to my agent, and I was like, well, should we do something to this? And I will never forget it. She was like, yes, like she was like, this is British Vogue. And she was like, how did you luck into this? And I was like, I don't know. It just happened. Like, you know, I don't know. And she was like, by all means, yes, you should be a stylist. Let's put a card together and let's make this happen. And that's how I fell into styling. My first gig as a stylist was a cover in like 8 pages for British Vogue. It was so crazy.
Your first styling gig was British Vogue. So how was that? Because people think that, you know, styling is glamorous, but it's a lot of schlepping, it's a lot of packing, it's a lot of work.
Dion, I hated styling with a passion that can only be described as religious. Because I had been a model, and models are like kind of lazy. You turn up, you take your clothes off, you put other clothes on, you leave them in the middle of the floor, you put your clothes back on, and you go home. You know, but now I'm a stylist and I'm begging for clothes and I'm like responsible for clothes and I'm responsible for jewelry and like I'm worried about like a $3,000 bracelet from Cartier. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I'm like, make sure so-and-so doesn't walk out of here with that ring. You know? I hated styling. Yeah. And you're dragging boxes. And then after the job is done and everybody else goes home, you still packing stuff and you got the tape out and you taping up boxes and you're taking pens out and you're like counting up stuff. It was horrible. I hated styling. It was
a lot of work. It's a lot. How many years did you do that?
I'm still a stylist.
I mean, until you went to the next thing was Big Brother. What was your big break for Big Brother? That's what I'm saying.
Okay, there's two reasons I did Big Brother, right? So I did Big Brother and so some of my Chicago friends will know this. I had a friend named Nikki Calabrese, who's Karen Calabrese, who lives in Chicago. She's her daughter. Nikki and I have been friends since Jesus was a boy. So, I mean, Nikki and I were friends, God. We were friends, not since childhood, but I think I met her like her last year of high school. Anyway, Nikki was in LA and she was casting. So the producers of Big Brother couldn't find a black guy that they liked. So then they go to their friends and they're like, do you know any black guys? And so they were like, Nikki, do you know any black guys? And she was like, do I know any black guys? My best friend's name is Marcellas Reynolds. And then she starts like unloading on all these crazy stories that Nikki and I shared from being in Chicago and being models together back in the day. And she pulls out my comp card because back then models used to all carry each other's comp cards around when you were friends with them. So they look at the comp card and they're like, oh, he's really cute, blah, blah, blah. Can we meet him? And Nikki was like, and Nikki sort of set it up. And I said no, because Ford told me not to do Big Brother. Ford was like, don't do a reality show to ruin your career. And I was like, okay, I won't do it. Well, long story short, because this is a long story. I had met this man that lived in New York, and I had been spending half my time in New York and half my time in Chicago because he was really, really rich, and I was actually in love with him, and I was in love for the first time. So I had sort of stopped trying to be a model and stopped trying to do anything, and I was just all hugged up with my boyfriend. So we spent half our time in Chicago and half our time in New York because he worked at Aon Risk. Long story short, I caught him cheating on me with the guy from The Real World. Ooh. The guy from The Real World, Chicago, who was a drunk. They met in AA. And so I caught him cheating on me with this younger, cuter, taller, I wouldn't say cuter, but younger, taller, like white kid that was younger than me. I'm really caught up on younger tonight. And right when I figured out who he was and that he had been on The Real World, the producers of Big Brother called me again.
Okay.
And they asked me if I would do the show. And I was like, well, I'll at least take the meeting. And then when they came to the meeting, I was a mess. I was like crying 1 minute. I was like, I can't believe he dumped me. I can't believe this is happening to me. And then the next minute I was like, no, I am a thoroughbred. This is not happening to me. So they thought I was insane. And of course, that's what they want on the show. So literally I went on Big Brother to get the guy that I had been dating back. Oh. Because he was dating a guy from The Real World. And I was like, if he wants a reality star, I'm gonna be the biggest reality star in the world. And for literally 5 seconds, I was the biggest reality star in the world.
Oh my goodness. So how was that experience while you were on Big Brother?
Girl, the Big Brother experience was crazy because I had never watched the show before, so I knew nothing about it. I didn't know how to play the game. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to act. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to
Yeah.
Like the first couple of weeks, I was just excited to be on a television show. So I was walking around looking in the cameras and like not being nice to people. And I was like, get out of my light. You know, like I was like acting like I was the star. And they were gonna evict my ass the first week because of that behavior.
Oh my gosh.
But then I sort of rallied and came back, and I learned, I will say I learned a lot about myself during Big Brother. And then I made the biggest mistake in reality history by not using the veto, and I got kicked out unceremoniously, and it was like the eviction heard around the world, blah, blah, blah. But it was, you know, it's still, there's parts of it that make me sad because I really trusted the people that I was playing the game with. And I didn't know that they were trying to get rid of me. And I protected the wrong people, and I lost sight of the fact that it was about money. And for me, it was about like kindness, and it was about honor, you know. But then, you know, I got kicked off. And then for like I said, for like 5 seconds after that, I was like the focus of so much attention, because this was before the Kardashians.
Yeah.
When I did Big Brother, there was just like Survivor, The Real World, The Amazing Race, and Big Brother. There weren't all these like, you know, there weren't like 300 reality shows, and there really wasn't a reality show that was about one specific person. So it was like kablam. Like it was literally like, you know, the meetings that I took and the opportunities that were presented in front of me just from doing Big Brother, I will definitely say they set me up for my current career in Hollywood. And I'll leave it at that.
Okay, good. So before we get into the book, your backdrop is, I love all your clothes back. What is all that? Is this are you in your closet?
I feel like I'm in my walk-in closet. I wish I'm at my kitchen counter, and I'm not going to show y'all anything. And then behind this is the big like living room area.
All your racks and racks of clothes.
And I pull my clothing rack in front of all of that, so y'all don't see what an absolute pig hermit I am.
No, you got dressed up. When we were doing our sound check, you were in a beautiful monogram robe, and then all of a sudden you look so dapper right now.
You can always find me in that crazy monogram robe. I will never let that go. I wore the robe on Big Brother. Like it literally was like who I am. And wait, I was trying to hide the first couple of days on Big Brother. I was trying to hide the fact that I was gay. Like I was trying to not talk about that. And then there was a whole discussion in the house about me being gay. And one of the girls is like, well, he owns a bathrobe.
Well, we talked about last year, I met you at the Underground at Billy Decker. You were just launching your book. You and Veronica Webb was there. I was loving that. I love this book. How did the idea present for you to start this tabletop book? Because it's on my table. It's in my, my living room. How did the idea present itself?
Well, you know what? I feel like the book is the culmination of all my lives, right? So the book is like little Marcellas, the gay kid working in Water Tower that loves fashion, right?
Yeah.
And then the book is Marcellas in his 20s that becomes a model and starts traveling the world and meeting all these people and really getting to know himself. And then it's, Marcellas, the fashion stylist, that actually, even though I say I hate being a fashion stylist, I actually love being a fashion stylist because I love when the outfit comes together. And I love models, right? There's this weird camaraderie that happens on a fashion set. And for like a day, you're like a family, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're lucky, those people actually become your friends. Yeah. And so many of my really good friends now are still the friends that I had when I was a model, and still the friends that I had when I was a stylist. And they still feel like my family, and I still have like so much love for them. And you meet these people from all over the world, from all walks of life. And so fashion sort of taught me that. But also while I was modeling and while I was styling, I really saw the difference between how like Black models were treated and how white models were treated. You know what I mean? This sort of weird hierarchy there was. And I remember going into agencies and having like an incredible book that was shot by Bruce Weber and Norman Jean Roy and Dahlin, and having agents tell me, oh, we already have a Black boy. You know, you represent 300 models, and then you feel like you feel confident enough to tell me that you already have one Black boy, like that's enough Black people to represent the entire spectrum of Black men. And sorry, it's just white models don't go through that. And so I think that was sort of the impetus for writing the book. It was like, I love fashion, and fashion is really, really democratic. And there are so many wonderful things about fashion that I love, but there are places that fashion is still lagging. And so the book for me was like, okay, how can I write a book that's a love letter to fashion, but also a love letter to Black models, and also a love letter to Black women? You know what I mean? Because I never met my father, and I grew up in a house with just, you know, my grandmother and my grandfather. I mean, my grandmother and my mother. And so I have this mad respect and love for these incredible women that, you know, gave me my life and fed my my dreams. And so the book for me is like that. It's like, it celebrates that. It celebrates Black women. It celebrates fashion. It celebrates an area of fashion that that I think deserves to be respected a little bit more.
Yes, because I felt that in the book when you're reading it. I felt you know, your love for the models, you and your dedication in telling the stories. It's beautiful. It's hundreds of pages of all the top models. I obsess about these models. What was the process of you getting all the beautiful photos, the stories? Like, what was that process and how long was that?
Hey, Tiffany. Hey, Hugh. Okay, so anyway, so the book. So it took me 8 years to make the book happen. I thought of the book in 2011 because I bought a book that was called Vogue Model, The Faces of Fashion, which is the British Vogue book. And I bought that book because I collect art books, right?
Yeah. That
book had easily like 100 models in it, but it only had 2 Black models, and it was supposed to be like every model that's ever appeared in not every model that's appeared in British Vogue, but models that have appeared in British Vogue. So the book only had 2 pictures of Black models. It was Naomi and it was Iman. So you know that Kermit the Frog gif where he's like this? I'm on Amazon at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm writing a review of this book, and I'm like, where is Veronica Webb? Where is Alec Weck? Where is, like, I'm like listing all these models. And right then I was like, wait, is there another book like that? Is there a book that celebrates Black models?
Yeah.
And when I looked around, there were like a couple of books that were similar to it, but there was no one book, especially an art book, especially an oversized, beautifully done art book with full bleed photos from the best photographers in the world of the last 20th century, of the last 100 years, right? There wasn't that book. And so, like, it was literally like God was like, okay, idiot, I'm giving you an idea. Take it and run with it.
Yeah.
And I ran with it. And there were times when literally a couple of publishers said to me, one publisher said to me in a meeting, they took the meeting because they knew me from television. And they were like, and when I came up with my idea, they were actually sort of bummed about it. You can tell, you can see how the room changed, the temperature changed.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, oh, that's your idea? We thought you wanted to do a book about yourself or a book about fashion. I was like, it is a book about fashion. And they were like, nobody's gonna buy a book about Black women. They literally said that to my face.
Yeah.
And then I was like that Viola Davis gif where she grabs her purse and she grabs her purse. I was like, I see I'm in the wrong room. I think I said that to you, Dion, the other night, where I was like, I want to go back to all those people that told me no about the book. Yeah. And like, be like, ha ha, like the book is a bestseller. It's like perennially #1 on Amazon. You know, Vogue chose it as one of the best fashion books of 2019. Essence gives it flowers. Essence talks about the book every week. L, every, you know, the book did better than I could ever even imagine.
Yeah, people need to get this. They need to get this book and study it. It's great history, it's style, it's fashion, it's beautiful. I just want to talk about a few of the models because I obsess about half of this group here. So let's hear some stories, okay? So I'm gonna start off with, you had the Trailblazers. I obsess about Beth Ann Hardison. Tell me something about Beth Ann.
Okay, so Beth Ann is legend for a couple of reasons. I call Beth Ann the godmother, but everybody else calls her Mama B. But I call her the godmother and not Mama B because if my mother found out I was calling any other woman Mama, there would be hell to pay. So I call Beth Ann godmother. Beth Ann is like this pivotal person in Black fashion because she started out as a runway model in the late 60s, early 70s. She was one of the models that went to the Battle of Versailles, which was a huge moment in fashion and in Black fashion and in American fashion. Basically,
and Pat Cleveland.
With Pat Cleveland. Basically, 5 American designers go to Paris and battle 5 Parisian couturiers for the title of the best designers in the world.
Yeah.
And everybody thinks that the French designers are going to win because, you know, they're couturiers. Yeah. And the American designers were basically sportswear designers. So all the American designers take the girls with them that normally do their shows. And so out of like 23 models, they took like 11 Black models. Yeah. And it was like Beth Ann Hardison and Alva Chen and Pat Cleveland. I mean, they took the Black girls that are real extra on the runway. And it was like the first time that the Parisian audiences had seen like models move like that and dance and walk and, you know, like, and strut. And even back then, it was like it was the white girls actually did their thing like the Black girls too. You know, when you were a runway model back in the 70s, you were a model. You brought those clothes to life when you were doing, you know, when you were doing Halston and Stephen Burrows, you know. And so the American designers ended up winning and it was like this sensation. And Beth Ann was one of those models and she became like this sort of insider where, you know, European designers would come and talk to Beth Ann and use her in the shows. And when they wanted to open their stores in the United States, she would help them in New York because she lived in New York.
She's a champion of diversity in this industry.
She is a champion of diversity. She was one of the first bookers at Click, which was a huge agency in New York.
Yeah.
And when a white client would call and say, oh, send us a packet with white girls, Beth Ann would be like, okay, I'm gonna send you 20 white girls, but I'm also throwing some Black girls in there too. And I got a really fire Chinese girl, I'm throwing her in there too. Like Beth Ann was like that person that was like, you know, subtly pushing, you know, her agenda, which was our agenda, forward.
The legend, Miss Naomi Sims. What do you think about Miss Sims?
You can't, okay, this is the thing about like I've been in fashion for 25 years, right? And now I wrote this book and it was like so much like research and interviews and more research and blah, blah, blah. Now I feel like this weird fashion historian because I have all these facts locked in my head. But Naomi Sims was probably the first Black supermodel. Now you can fight me on this because a lot of people want to be like Donielle Luna was the first Black supermodel. And I believe Donielle Luna was the first Black supermodel. But Naomi Sims was the model that changed the game.
Yeah.
She was the first Black model on the cover of Life magazine, which was like huge when that happened. Life magazine was basically Time magazine, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she was the first Black model on a magazine called Ladies Home Journal, which today we're like, Ladies Home Journal? Who even gets that? That's my grandmother's magazine. Back then, Ladies Home Journal was in like 14 million homes across the United States. Yeah. So when that Black face with dark skin and natural hair landed on the doorsteps of 14 million homes in the United States, that was a powerful message from fashion about the beauty and the importance of the Black woman and the Black model.
Yeah. Also, when you were touring, you had model Veronica Webb with you. She signed my book that night. Hello.
Veronica, oh, I don't have the, this is a new copy of the book. My special copy, the first copy has Veronica all over it. All the models have signed my book, except for Naomi and Iman. But that's happening after the pandemic.
So Veronica was touring with you. How did you guys link up like that?
Well, I met Veronica on set. I was doing the Meredith Vieira show. I was Meredith's gay. for like 2 years, I was Meredith's gay. And so Meredith would have me on the show doing makeovers, and she would have me on the show just talking to her. Basically, I sat there and talked to her. And I would talk and she would laugh. That was my job on the Meredith Vieira show. And I love Meredith Vieira to this day. And one day, Meredith was doing these panels and Veronica was on the panel. And the producers came to me and they were like, okay, so this week, the talk panel, we're doing the talk panel today. And the guest is Veronica Webb. And I literally was like, Veronica Webb, you don't understand. And they were like, do you want to meet her? And I was like, I was literally like stuttering because this was in 2015.
Yeah.
And so I go running up to Veronica, and Veronica is like calm and serene and beautiful, and the hair and the makeup are done, and you know she's wearing Azadine Alaya. And I go running up to her, and I'm on the verge of tears. And I'm like, I love you. You don't understand. When you said you're naked and unzipped, like I'm literally quoting, I am that idiot, that gay guy that's quoting lines from Unzipped to Veronica Webb. And she is looking at me like, where is security? Like she's literally like... And so we do our thing. I finally pull it together and we do our like thing. We do our panel. And then after the panel, she was like, oh, you're really funny. That was really fun. And I was like, listen, I'm writing this book. It's about Black models. I would love to interview you. And she was like, and after how crazy I was with her when I met her, like literally shouting like avocado, chicken with pesto, all these stupid lines from Unzip, right? I'm literally shouting these lines at her. She gave me her home phone number and she was like, just call me. Yes, I'd love to do the book. And I was like, I have Veronica Webb's phone number. Like, yeah. I'm so glad that Twitter wasn't a thing back then because I would have probably been like standing there with like taking a selfie with Veronica Webb's phone number.
It would have been viral. Yeah, so you have everybody in this book from Iman to Naomi to just everyone in this book from Tyra Banks, the 90 supermodel queens, Beverly Johnson. You can feel the love in that. So before we close on this part, just tell people why this is so important about diversity, telling their stories, why this book is so important for them to get.
Okay, I'm gonna try to get to this without crying. I almost started crying earlier talking about Black women. I have a problem. So I'm gonna try to get through this without crying. This book is so important because I was the little gay kid on the south side of Chicago that was like bullied and didn't have any friends. And so my grandmother had Ebony and she had Black Enterprise and she had Jet in her house. And I would read those magazines from cover to cover. And those magazines gave me a window to a world that I wasn't living in at the time, right? Those magazines showed me that there were Black debutantes and Black doctors, and that there were Black celebrities, and there were Black police officers and football players. Ebony was like Life magazine. So it really covered like all the areas of what was important to Black people. And that magazine in particular gave me a space to dream, right? It gave me a space to go, my existence right now is not so good, but I can make it out of here through hard work. Yeah. Because as a little Black kid, if you see it, you can be it. And that's why books like mine are so important, because there'll be that little Black girl that's sitting at home and maybe she's got dark skin, or maybe she's got curly, nappy hair. And maybe she's being told at school that she's not pretty because of the color of her skin or because of her hair. Or maybe it's that little gay kid that loves fashion and he's looking at that book and he's going, I want to be a fashion stylist. I want to be a model. And he sees it and it gives him a goal. So yeah, that's why books like this are important.
This is so important. When I was in Hyde Park and I went to to the Silver Room, and I saw your book there. People could get the book there. Eric Williams and his team has it available there. I love that it's there. It's all right there at the front of the store. You can pick it up. The Supreme models is worth it's a good Christmas gift too. Like I'm getting some of these for people for Christmas. This is a good Christmas gift, I swear to God. And you should get it at the Silver Room. We want to shop Black. We love the Silver Room. So thank you, Marcellas. I love the book. Thanks to also to Eric Williams and his team at the Silver Room. I know we're going to do some Q&A. So Brandon, my co-host.
Yes, absolutely. I have some Q&A questions for you guys.
Okay.
First things first. Marcella, what's up? I have a question for you from Sabrina Miller. She's asking, how's the life in Hyde Park? How was your life in Hyde Park? What's your favorite memories living in Hyde Park and going to Kenwood? Also, I went to Kenwood too, so.
I want to hear this because you probably graduated from Kenwood in like 2000.
Exactly.
I graduated from Kenwood.
No,
I went there. That's all that matters. So. But no, how was your life in Hyde Park and going to Kenwood and everything? Like,
well, you know what? I actually enjoyed. So I was from the South Side of Chicago, and I was from like South Shore, right? And once I got to Kenwood Academy, it was such a multiracial school. Like there were like white kids and biracial kids, and there were Asian kids, and there were super smart kids, but then there were like burnouts who sat outside and smoked pot all day. And then there were like the most beautiful girls in the world that like dressed like it was a fashion show. And it was just this like kind of cultural melting pot. And it also was this place where, even though there were times when I was maybe bullied in high school because I was the gay kid before I even realized I was gay, most of the time in Kenwood, it was very welcoming to me, and I was so popular, and I had so many friends. I actually think I was like senior homecoming king my year or something, which was so crazy. The gayest kid in the world was like senior homecoming king. But I loved Kenwood, and I think my favorite, Sabrina actually went to Kenwood. She was a year behind me. I think my favorite part of Kenwood actually was the bus rides home. Because so many of us would be like, we took the bus to school, and so many of us were on the bus going back home. So it was like kind of after school, and we were all kind of like laughing and hanging out on the bus as we each got off the bus. And then when I started working on the north side, we'd all take, there was a crew of us that worked in the water tower. So we would all get off out of school at the same time. We'd take the bus together, and we'd be sitting there doing our homework before we got to work. And I will always remember the 6 Jeffrey Express.
Yes. I love that so much. Oh my God, it's so fun. I have another question from Karen. She's asking, who was the agent that encouraged you to be a stylist? And after you were in British Vogue as well?
The woman that actually discovered me, Marie Anderson, who owned Aria, she was trying to get me to stop being a model and to start being a host and to start acting. Because she was like, you've got a voice and you've got a personality, you should be an actor. And she actually got me my very first hosting audition, which was for MTV to be a VJ. And I went in there kind of half-assed because I didn't want to do anything but be a model. So I went in there all like, whatever, you know, here's my lines, here's my read, whatever. But now in retrospect, I should have approached that like, you know, an MTV VJ? Are you kidding me? So Marie always wanted me to do more. She always wanted her talent to be like the full spectrum. She was like, you don't have to just be like a model, be a television host, be an actor, be a stylist. And then my agent at Elite in Chicago back then was a British woman named Alice. And she was the head of the, she worked in the runway division, and she also worked in the stylist division. And she was the woman I came in and dropped the British Vogue magazine on. And she literally looked at me like I was like insane. She was like, you have the most luck of anybody I've ever met.
I love that so much. I have another question from Angela. She's asking, what's the funniest story with Oprah?
I have so many Oprah stories. God, I have so many Oprah stories. I'm going to tell you the first Oprah story, right? Because Oprah changed my life. So I was the little gay kid that worked in Water Tower at an all-women's store, right? And I loved every moment of it. Because when you work at a women's store, like women just, and you're the only guy, they come running up to you. They don't care about other women's opinion. They care about your opinion. So I would be like, girl, that skirt is everything. I would be like, yes, get this. You know that sweater comes in red too. I would be like, yes, let's do this. And I had this amazing clientele. So one day Oprah came in the store and the Water Tower, the McDonald's was across the hall from T. Edwards Water Tower. And Oprah came in and she sat outside of the dressing room. She was a Deborah Diamani or somebody, Deborah something, who was one of her producers at the Oprah show. But back then it was the AM Chicago. So Oprah sat down. So Deborah was trying on all these clothes and Oprah sat down and Oprah was eating French fries out of a bag, right? So I walked my little 16-year-old, still had an afro and had a gap between my teeth big enough to fit a Frito in. I walked up to Oprah and I was like, Oprah, I want to be on your show. Oprah looked at me in mid-French fry. I will never forget this. She was like, and what is your talent? I don't know yet. And so she started laughing and continued eating French fries out of the bag. But right then I was like, one day I'm gonna be on your show. You just wait.
I love that so much.
It cemented into me right then. I was like, Oprah, you gonna know my name one day. You gonna know who I am.
You are magic. All right, so then the next question I have is from Helena. She's asking, would you consider Celebrity Big Brother, and what do you think of Tamar winning?
I was happy that Tamar won because Tamar was like me, where it was like no filter. And I actually have met Tamar a couple of times and I love her. Actually, I've met all the Braxtons except for Tony, because I used to do Bossip here and they were all on Bossip. I would do Celebrity Big Brother because it's a shorter schedule. You know, if you do real Big Brother, that's 3 months, and that is the longest 3 months of your life, honey. God. But the celebrity one is like a month. I would do Celebrity Big Brother. In fact, they had asked me to do the first time I was in the mix for the first one. You know what I was in the mix for that I didn't get that I'm still pissed off about is Dancing with the Stars. Oh, to this day. Okay, next question. Dion, did you have a question?
The next question is, how do you feel about technology and online shopping, how it has affected personal styling?
I don't know how I feel about how it's affected personal styling, but I hate how e-com has sort of destroyed modeling, and I hate how e-com has destroyed fashion. I mean, what are little kids supposed to, your first job was like always like going to work at the Gap, right? You know, and now kids that are coming up aren't gonna have that first job in retail, right? They're not gonna be able to work at Urban Outfitters or the Gap or Limited Express. And I hate that. And then there's something amazing about a brick and mortar store and going in and touching the clothes and trying the clothes on and talking to the salespeople. And if you're me, I end up, every time I go shopping, I end up making friends with like the other people that are shopping because I'm like, girl, that's awful. Or I'm like, oh my God, I love that. Or like, you know, so it's always like a thing with me. There's like a community to shopping that I think you miss when you're sitting at home, you know, at 2 o'clock in the morning on Net-a-Porter, you know, buying something you really don't need that you're going to send back because it's always going to be too small because you didn't try it on.
Exactly, I feel you, exactly. I have a question. I have a question from Audrey Petty. She's asking, how did your interviewing process go and editing process?
For the book? For
I believe.
Okay, so basically it was me just being like a nightmare and just really browbeating every model I could get my hands on, right? And browbeating their agents and being all like, I'm celebrity fashion stylist Marcellas Reynolds, you know, trying to use the little bit of clout I have, which is nominal, let's be honest. But what I didn't realize about the editing process is the more you talk, the longer the interview is. So I talked to some of these women for like 3 hours. And then when I went to transcribe them, it would be like $100 to transcribe the interview. And then my cheap ass was like, I'm not spending $100 on an interview. And so I had to transcribe all the interviews myself. And I did like 40 interviews. So it would take like, if the interview was like 3 hours, it would take 9 hours to transcribe it. It was awful. But there were so many gems in the interviews. And these women were so amazing and kind and beautiful and wonderful and told their stories. I mean, if you get the book, the pictures are everything, of course, but read the interviews. It's all there on the page. When Rashumba Williams talks about being in a fitting with Gianfranco Ferre, when Kirsty Bowser talks about getting the cover of Elle magazine after being like kind of a 17 girl for the most of her career, and they changed the color of her eyes to blue from brown on the cover of the magazine. When Tamiko Frazier, who was the contract girl for Maybelline, walks into a casting after waiting in line for 3 hours, and they tell one of the top models in the world, who's got a multi-million-dollar makeup contract, that they're not seeing Black girls this season. You know, there's so many amazing stories there, but then there's also just wonderful stories of triumph. There's stories that are just, you know, amazing and uplifting. Georgie Badiel used her model money to build wells in Africa because when she was a little girl growing up, she had to walk 10 miles both ways to get water for her family. And she was the girl that carried the thing on top of her head. And these women tell these incredible stories so elegantly and readily. So read the book. Don't just look at the book, read the book.
The book is fantastic. I will say that. I have looked at it myself. I've viewed it. I have it right here in my lap. It's fantastic. It's a good book. I do photography. I'm into art. It's breathtaking. It's really nice. I really love the detailing, everything about it. And
$1,000 to make. It was supposed to cost $35,000, and I couldn't pull back. And that was all out of pocket. I couldn't dishonor the history of the women inside, and I couldn't dishonor the history of fashion, because both of those things have given me so much and are so important to me. So yeah, I went into debt. I spent my savings on this book, and the book got picked up at the exact same time that Bonton, which was a Chicago company, went out of business. And I owed my agency Ford $20,000, and they took that money. Before they would give you another check, you had to work that money off. And so, I mean, I literally just earlier this summer paid off the last credit card that I used to pay for the licensing fees for this book. It cost me everything, but it was the love that I've gotten back from it. It was worth every dime. And I'm doing it again.
yes.
So you have a new book that's coming out. Like this is before we close.
Yes. Talk about it.
This is an exclusive because it's Hyde Park, it's Chicago, it's Eric. What's the new book? This is an exclusive right here.
Well, I announced that I sold the new book. The new book is Supreme Actresses. And the new book is called Supreme Actresses. It's basically Supreme models, but it's actresses. It's the whole gamut of the Black experience on celluloid and on the stage. It's icons like Josephine Baker, Lena Horne, Dorothy Dandridge. It's like all of that. but then it's like the new girls, like, well, not the new girls, but it's like Diane Carroll, it's like Cecily Tyson, it's like Pam Grier from the 70s. But what I haven't been telling you guys, what I haven't been saying, and what I wanted to tell you guys now is that I wanted to just list some of the interviews that I've gotten and some of the interviews that I have scheduled. Because I'm not supposed to do this. Like Abrams is all like, don't tell anybody who's doing the forward and don't tell anybody. And I'm like, this is my book. Oh, anyway. So anyway. So
real quick, what's some of the interviews you have? I want to know.
I interviewed Issa Rae from Insecure, who's amazing.
Nice.
And this time I was not on the phone for like 3 hours. I kept it at an hour. So the transcription only cost $22. I interviewed, and what I love about my transcribers are they're these little old ladies from like, from Ohio. And so they're like, oh, we're just glad to have some money. And then they ask me like, what does this word mean? And it's like Issa.
Who else is in the book?
Nia Long, who's
nice.
Legendary. Yeah. Gabrielle Union, who's legendary. Tiffany Haddish did an amazing interview with me. I mean, we were both crying because we both had like all this stuff in common about, we both had daddy issues from back in the day. That issue is amazing. Lynn Whitfield, who played Josephine Baker and won an Emmy for that. Lynn is in the book. Jada Pinkett is doing an interview when she comes back from Offset. Alexandra, wait, I can't list everybody. That's enough. That's enough.
List everybody. List everybody.
Yeah, I love this. I love.
Yes. So
you know who I ended up interviewing, and this is so crazy. I ended up interviewing Garcelle Bouvier, who like a lot of people are like, well, why put Garcelle in the book? She's like not this big actress. But I was looking for that actress that sort of had been a model and like landed really well. Yeah. And her story is amazing. When she was like a Haitian refugee. When she came to the United States, she didn't speak English. And for her to be like this little Black girl, like I think she had like there were 7 of them, who comes from like Haiti and gets plopped down in the middle of like a small town in like Massachusetts, not speaking English, and to become like an actress who's like in Spider-Man and who's doing Coming to America 2 right now. Like that's just, to me, that's amazing. That's what the book is about. Some little girl is going to read that and that's going to resonate with her. You know, some little girl is going to be like, if she can come from Haiti and people can walk up to her in this white town and ask to touch her hair or touch her skin because they've never seen a Black person in real life before, and she can become this amazing actress, anybody can do anything. That's what these books are for. They're to inspire. I hope they are.
Yeah, so that will come out next year. That book that you have, Supreme Actresses. Thank you so much, Marcellas. Yes. Wait, how do we get in touch with you? Like, where do we follow you on? Because we got some good people on this. Everybody looks so good. We got modeling, the legendary modeling Rob on here. We got all Audrey. They said she's an author. We got Carrie. We got everybody on here.
Audrey Petty and I went to high school with, and I know Audrey's boyfriend, and I know his mama. Say hi to your mama.
What do we follow you on Instagram?
Marky Mark on Instagram. Marky Mark, like name and lights. MarQueeMarc. And I'm sorry I was so emotional tonight. I didn't know that was going to happen to me, that all of a sudden I was going to become this crier all over the place. But COVID, and we sheltering in place, and you know, the world is a crazy place. So
yes. So yeah, we asked you to follow him on Instagram. Follow me at Dion, Dionn Williams on Instagram, the Silver Room on Instagram. Thank you so much. Great conversation. I loved it. Thank you, Eric, again.
Follow Cute Brandon on Instagram. Follow Cute Brandon. Follow Cute Marcellas.
Follow me. Thank you
on Instagram.
Thank you all. Thank everyone for joining.
Where's the after party, Eric?
Where is the after party?
Eric, when this is over and Supreme Actresses comes out, I'm coming to Chicago and we're doing this again, and we're doing it live.
Man, I would love to. I love to, man. I love the old school stories. You know, you bringing back some memories of the the sophistication of fashion back from the 80s. You know what I mean? It's like kind of missing right now. So thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Very, very welcome. Thank you for having me. I almost wore my Nate Parker t-shirt. Can I say what the Nate Parker t-shirt says?
Yeah.
There's a t-shirt. I was at Silver Room like 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And a girl that was in the store was wearing a t-shirt that said, "Fuck this shit," with Nate Parker 1851. And I was like, "Oh my God." And she was like, I was like, "Where did you get your t-shirt?" And she was like, "Duh, here." And so I bought like 3 t-shirts. And I was wearing that t-shirt to the gym, and they asked me to leave Equinox one night when I was wearing my "Fuck this shit" Nate Parker t-shirt because people were complaining.
Thank you again. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm sending you all love. Wear your masks. Be careful. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Kiara.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone that joined for this lovely talk. Thank you, Marcellas. Thank you, Dion, and everyone. To find this lovely copy of book, you can find it at the Silver Room. You can find it on the website, thesilverroom.com, or you can go on our Instagram, The Silver Room. We have Facebook. We also have a lovely 7 days a week delivery service, and we ship globally. We ship all over the world. So that's a key selling. Free shipping locally, 25 miles.
Brandon, tell them about the raffle. If you go right now, okay, wait. So if you go to the Silver Room's Instagram and you comment on the Silver Room's last post, which is me, and you tell us who your favorite model is in the comments, there's a raffle that will get you, if you get picked, you'll get a signed copy of the book.
I have a winner. I have a winner.
You already have a winner? Who won?
I have a winner. The winner is Cody Spencer.
Okay, listen, I didn't know they were already doing that. So, okay, so send me a DM at Marky Mark, and then I'll give you a copy of my book. I'll give you one of the copies of my book, and I'll sign it, and I'll send it to you. How about that?
Oh, me?
I'm not giving out 300 books. I'm gonna give out one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bye.
I love it.
Bye.
You can find the book. Lovely book. I love this book. This book is fantastic. I love the intro. I love all the detailing of it. It's amazing. Just go to the website, come into the store. You can come in. We are 1506 East 53rd Street. If you are not local, we do local delivery service. We also have online service. We have Instagram as well, thesilverroom.com. So please check us out. Please check out this lovely book. It is super inspiring, especially for me as a young artist. Very inspiring book. I love it. So thank you guys so much.
Good night. Good night. Good night.
Yes.
Congratulations, Cody. Bye, Joseph Caruso.
Bye, guys. Thank you so much.